Blab Rap channel. You're with Dean Lonergan. Dean, can you just tell the people where we are and what are we doing?
2 buses this afternoon.
Okay, cool. All right, we're here in Las Vegas, Nevada for the Terence Crawford and Jeff Horn fight on June 9 and really June 10 in New Zealand and Australia. Broadcast on Fox Sports in Australia and Sky Sports in New Zealand. And Sky Sports, it's on subscription only, so you don't have to, it's not a pay-per-view show.
Is this your first time in Vegas?
Mate, I've been to Vegas minimum 30, 35 times. And I've been up here for big fights. Come over here for the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. I've seen a couple of other Pacquiao fights. Been here for Deontay Wilder versus Bermane Stiverne. So I've seen a lot of fights up here and I've been here a lot. So it's sort of, I'm really enjoying it up here. There's a lot of people you know. Obviously Kevin Barry's up here. It's great to catch up with him. So having a good time.
So, you know, MGM, this is where all the greats have fought, and now Jeff Horn is fighting. I mean, that's pretty incredible for you to see, right?
Well, this was always part of the plan. You know, when we first sat down and signed and talked to Glenn Rushton, the trainer manager of Jeff Horn, about signing him, it was always, well, we want to go to the big time and the bright lights. And here we are, sort of 3 and 4 years later, delivering on those promises. But because Jeff has delivered in the ring, you know, we were given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity by Bob Arum probably a year ago when Manny Pacquiao come down to fight Jeff Horn in Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium in front of 51,000. That was a life-changing event for Jeff Horn, and he grabbed it with both hands, grabbed the opportunity and ran with it.
Yeah.
And here we are in Las Vegas now, taking on the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world and giving Jeff to be recognised as exactly that. So I think the Americans who are not giving Jeff a hope in hell of winning this fight are in for one hell of a shock on Saturday night.
Jeff continues to change the narrative, right? Like the course of action. Like, you know, nobody thought he was going to beat Pacquiao. Here he is with Terence Crawford. If he beats him, I mean, this changes Top Rank's direction.
This, you know, Terence Crawford is one of 2 staples right now in the Top Rank stable. You've got Crawford and you've got Lomachenko. Now, Bob Arum and Top Rank have just signed a massive deal with the ESPN to run 30 fights a year. And the cornerstone of that entire deal is Crawford and Lomachenko. Lomachenko's doing a good job. He's living up to the hype. He's doing it, you know, he's winning, and he's one of the most scientific fighters in the world. He's entertaining, he's great. Crawford, on the other hand, if Jeff wins on Saturday night, and we're firm believers that he's going to, because, you know, we've got a plan in place to make sure that does happen. Mate, Crawford, we could really upset the apple cart here, and all of a sudden the opportunities that will be open to Jeff will abound. You know, like, this is the last of our series of fights with Bob Arum, and we'll have, you know, the opportunity to be talking to our own TV networks, and maybe HBO and Showtime, maybe ESPN, or through, you know, I'd be more than happy to work with Bob Arum again. He's a tough negotiator, but he's good to work with, and he lives up to what he says to do in the contract, so there's never any issues with that. So, you know, the whole world for Jeff Horn, when it was elevated back in, I think, July last year against Manny Pacquiao, it'll go up another 2 or 3 steps when he wins this fight.
So this is the last deal with Bob?
With Top Rank, yeah.
Okay.
We had, when Jeff beat Manny Pacquiao, there was a clause in the contract that said, if we win, you then got to do 2 more fights with Bob Arum. It's called an options agreement. Okay. So we've done that, and you know, this is the last of those 2 fights, and at the back end of this, we're free to fight whoever we want.
So the cards are now in Jeff's favour, right?
They're 100% in Jeff's favour. There's no doubt about that, and you know, his future now is in his hands. And like I said, when we first sat down, Glenn Rushton always says, we want the big fights. Well, in the world of welterweight boxing, this is as big as it gets, so looking forward to it.
What's his confidence level, Jeff Horn's confidence levels going into this fight? He beat Pacquiao, he defended his title. What's it like?
From what I can understand, you know, because at the end of the day, I'm in the business of looking after the media and making sure that all the money's right, everyone gets paid, and we're getting as much money through the door as we possibly can to get Jeff as paid as well as he can. But my understanding through Glenn Rushton and everyone I'm talking to is that Jeff's never been prepared better. He's got a dietitian on for this fight. You know, sometimes he's struggled to make weight. Well, that's not going to be an issue in this fight. He's going to make weight nice and easy, and that's got to be a weight of his mind. He's basically had 2 training camps for this because of the hand injury to Terence Crawford, so he trained hard for about 6 or 7 weeks, got into amazing shape. Crawford injured his hand, they backed off for a little bit, then they went into training camp again, and my understanding is he's about 20% better than what he was from an aerobic point of view, strength point of view, than what he was from Manny Pacquiao. And if that's the case, you know, and I don't care who Terence Crawford has sparred, there's no one that can prepare him for Jeff Horn because of how awkward he is and how the different angles that he comes in from and how hard he hits. I think Mr. Crawford's in for a hell of a shock on Saturday night.
Do do you envision this fight to be tougher than the Manny Pacquiao fight?
This fight's going to be definitely tougher than Pacquiao. There's no doubt about that. You've got a guy in Terence Crawford who's, he's going to the Boxing Hall of Fame already, and he's 30 years of age, whereas Pacquiao is 38 years of age and is basically a full-time senator in the Philippine Parliament. Whereas Crawford's a full-time boxer and does nothing but think about boxing, sleep boxing, and fishing of all things. Apparently likes to fish, which is a pretty cool, with his kids, which is a very cool thing to do. So, but I do think this is going to be a tougher fight than Pacquiao. But Jeff Horn's ready for it, and when he wins on Saturday night, the whole world's going to be his oyster.
If he hears the word "and still," does that mean he's one of the greatest fighters?
He'd
ever?
certainly be the greatest fighter to come out of Australia, I think, on a pound-for-pound basis, and that would certainly put him. Terence Crawford, when you rate him as a pound-for-pound king of the world, as Crawford is in a number of the bodies, if Jeff Horn was to beat Terence Crawford, well, he has to go to that pound-for-pound, status.
Yeah.
But the Americans will not grant it to him. I can promise you that, because they don't think, they think this is going to be an easy walkover for Crawford. But the way I see it is this: is at the moment the bookies are paying 6-1 and 7-1 in a 2-horse race, which I think is a 50-50 fight. So I think the best bet in town is to get your money on Jeff Horn, because there's going to be an upset on Saturday night, very similar to what we saw in Brisbane.
I know you mentioned the odds, but if you look at it, like Jeff is the bigger fighter, the stronger fighter. He's polished at this weight division. He's a world, he's a world champion. And then, do you think there's lingering doubts in Terence Crawford's mind, like just because going up in weight against?
Look, it's hard to know what goes on in his mind. So I can't speak for Terence Crawford. All I can do is look at the facts. The facts are, on Terence Crawford's record, there's not exactly global titans against his resume. His last fight was a guy called Julius Ndongo, who no one knows, and for God knows what reason he had 2 world titles under his belt. And Victor Pistola, I think that's the guy's name.
Yeah, train my friend. Yeah.
These guys are, at best they're okay fighters. They're certainly not Manny Pacquiao, and they're not even Randall Bailey. Randall Bailey is somebody who Jeff fought 2 years ago and beat to an absolute pulp, who wouldn't come off his chair in the 8th round. And Randall Bailey was a 2-time world champion and renowned to be one of the hardest hitters in the division of all time. So it's fair to say that I think the American public, most certainly the American media, are underestimating just how good Jeff is. And I think we're in for a hell of an upset on Saturday night.
Dean, thank you very much for your time, and hoping Jeff Horn gets the win.
I'm sure
Thank
he
you.
will.
Thanks for your time.
Too easy, brother. Just make sure you link in with everything we do.
I will.